of your speech on stage, I think that everyone kind of had a moment to pause and find that stillness and, you know, really take in what you were trying to tell us. I'd like to dive deep and ask you, what do you think a marketer's duty is nowadays?
That's a good question. I mean, you know, it's sort of never been easier to spread untrue information. And so I think as a marketer, you have to ask yourself, like, are you actually selling something you believe in? That you are you propagating messages that you feel like are making the world a better place? I think we are now seeing the sort of costs of what happens when marketers are only thinking about sales, they're only thinking about getting attention, and they're not thinking about, like, does this really matter? Is this true? You know, am I proud of this?
So true. And I think this is something that we should all keep in mind, because it also makes a huge impact when you translate that into your actual work and not just keep it as a principle.
Yeah, of course.
Do you think that marketers and business owners have a responsibility to kind of reduce anxiety around the decision-making process for their customers?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, obviously an effective sales tactic is to make people think that, you know, they need this, that it's going to be bad if they don't have it. But I think ultimately that sets up, if your product doesn't actually deliver what that is, it sets up disappointment. So I think when I try to market things, I want to market things I actually believe in and things that I think are delivering a lot of value to the customer. So I really think, like, would I buy this? You know, like, is this worth what people are paying for? I'm not just thinking about sales. I'm not just thinking about short-term gains. I'm thinking about starting a relationship with people, and I want that relationship to be ongoing, and I want it to be a mutual exchange of value.
And I loved how you cultivated that throughout time, and how you talked about the compound effect at the end of the day of keeping up this particular thing, because we had a lot of talk about content and the importance of content for e-commerce going forward, which is kind of a new thing, because it used to be very transactional, and now it's changing.
Well, it used to be you were selling something at a store, and so you didn't have a direct relationship with your customer, but now you are the retailer, right? You are selling it directly, and so that's why that trust is so important.
Exactly, and I only think it's going to become even more important going forward.
Absolutely.
Could you share a practice that most people in, let's say, marketing or e-commerce could leverage to kind of gain objectivity when it comes to their decisions, that cognitive distance that you sometimes talk about in your work?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, I do think you want to get as much objective feedback about your work as possible. It's so easy to go off in a cave and make something, and of course you love it. You spent all this time on it, but, you know, what do people who are not you think about it? You can't listen too much to critics or doubters, but I do think you want to get as much data as possible, and you want to have a sort of an ongoing fluid relationship with your customers, so you know you're not launching something that isn't good, you know, and that's where that data and that testing and getting feedback really matters.
How about qualitative kind of input? Where do you have some people that you usually turn to? I know you have a mentor that you have a long-standing relationship with, but what are kind of people that you have around you when you have to double check your decisions? Yeah,
I mean, one of the valuable parts about having an editor is there's someone who's not you, who's the sort of final decision maker on a lot of stuff. And so having a sort of a trusted network of people who give you really honest feedback, whose opinions you respect, who are maybe even better than you at your thing, is really important. And yeah, you don't want to publish something that hasn't had a lot of different eyes on it, because that's where when you do that, that's when you mess up.
And doing that emotional work of taking in the negative feedback, that's the tough part.
Yeah, when you get a book back and it's filled with red marks that say you messed up here, you didn't do this, you can be like, screw you, you don't know what you don't get me. You can take offense, or you can go, okay, what did they not get here? What can I do better? And that doesn't mean that every piece of criticism or all the feedback needs to be taken into account, but you should really understand, like, it's the idea is not, it's like, there's a great line I heard about editing. It's like, when someone tells you something wrong, they're always right. When they tell you how to fix it, they're almost always wrong. So it's just that there's a problem, that they notice something. That's what you pay attention to, and you typically come up with your own solution.
That's a very good one. Make sure to keep that in mind. What is your advice for people who are afraid of slowing down and finding that stillness that you talk about in your latest book? Lest they are afraid of missing out things,
Sure.
of being left out.
Yeah, I mean, when I think about my best work, when I think about the best moments of my life, when I think I was sort of really in that peak performance, like kind of state of mind, I wasn't thinking about 20 things. I wasn't going a mile a minute. It's actually that everything slowed down, that I was really focused, that I was singularly focused on one thing. And so I think when you talk to great athletes, great authors, great leaders, they use really similar words to describe that experience. And so the idea that you're going to compete at the elite level when you're distracted, when you're taking in lots of information at the same, that's just not how it works. So the slowing down, it's not that it's making you miss out, it's that it's actually setting you up to do really well at the things that matter.
I love how you always give out kind of counterintuitive advice, but that's not only stood the test of time, but it really works. I've seen this in so many ways when people, marketers have let go of social media or have toned down their presence a lot, and their work has actually gotten a lot better. Why should marketers, you emphasized in your speech earlier that we should focus on sources of information, on books and resources that have stood the test of time. Sure. Why do you think that's valuable, for kind of trying to catch a glimpse of it for the people who couldn't see your talk live?
Yeah, I mean, when I think about like the books I'm going to read or the videos I'm going to watch, I don't want to watch this thing that's going to be proven irrelevant or untrue 10 minutes from now or 10 days from now. I want to read something that stood the test of time, that's likely to remain relevant and important. So I think we're just way too obsessed with what's new, what's breaking, what's developing, what's trendy. And we should be thinking about, the things that are universal, that are timeless, right? And so it's just deciding to what kind of information sources you're going to let into your brain. And, I think people are getting way too much from social media and not a lot from media that's got the goods.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I fully stand behind that. So when it comes to, we have a lot of control over many things in our lives, even if we don't perceive that directly. So what is one thing marketers can control and should control that is their responsibility when it comes to their work?
Sure. I mean, so marketers are always focused on getting attention, building their brand, media, advertising. But ideally, what you want to have is a fan base. You want to have an audience, a platform that you own, right? So like, I know when I'm putting out a book, I know it's going to sell at least, this many copies because I'm marketing it to my list. And just the amount of authors I know that don't have a list, the amount of brands that I know that don't have a list, the amount of people who are dependent on promotion and marketing to announce what they're doing, it makes me really sad.
Yeah, or to keep clients coming in, which is, again, very risky.
You want to have recurring revenue, ongoing relationships, not needing to always, acquire.
Absolutely. And the patience to cultivate and to reap the results of that compound effect.
Yeah, to do the work and invest in yourself and in your brand in that way.
Yes. I love how I think that mindset is the most important part of any work that we do, but especially as marketers, because we're challenged in so many ways. So what do you think is one of the strongest mental biases that marketers have that they should be aware of? And obviously always keep themselves in check so they don't go.
Sure. Yeah, I think we have a bias towards what's new rather than growing what's already working, right? So in publishing, everyone's focused on what we call the front list, not the back list, right? We're focused on the new releases, not on the releases that are working. And it's like, if you're marketing something that's new, it's easier to get attention for it, but it's actually unproven whether it will sell. Meanwhile, you have something that's already selling, people like it. It's less sexy to invest your time and energy on growing that pie, but that's going to be you're going to have more of an ROI there. So, even me, it's like, I know I've had books now that have sold for 7 or 8 years, but that seems less fun, less entertaining, less validating than the new thing. And so, just not falling into that is really important. If it's still selling, if there's still people on the planet that haven't heard of it, it's new.
Yes.
And just not losing track of that.
One very short question that's related more to our role as marketers. Why is it important to cultivate kind of a set of personal values and principles that helps you make decisions outside of any particular role that you may have at one time?
Yeah, look, there's white hat marketing strategies and black hat marketing strategies. There's shortcuts, there's rules, there's ethical things, unethical things. And I early in my career, this is sort of what my first book is about. It's easy to get distracted, to go off course and do the things that are getting attention, that are fun, that are controversial. But maybe you look back on them and you go, that wasn't right, or I wish I hadn't done that, or now that's a black mark on my reputation. And so, just because something works doesn't mean it's worth doing. And I think increasingly now we're seeing politically, culturally, you can get attention if you're shameless, if you don't care, if you're willing to lie. And that's just not a good place. That's not a long-term strategy. That's not how you build trust. That's not how you build an audience. It might be how you can, become popular in the short term, but that's not the brand you want.
Definitely. Thank you so much once again for sharing so much of your work and of yourself with us. You've made such a big impact on the community and me personally.
Oh, thank you.
Changed my mindset, changed how I look at people, relationship, and my work. So thank you so much.
That's really cool. Thank you.